Welcome to this week's episode of the Wrestle Watch podcast, your only home for free agency talk in the world of professional wrestling. I am Ryan.
And I'm Doug. Hello. Welcome, everyone. Happy new Taylor Swift album week.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm so happy.
Well, I hear it's not getting the greatest reviews, so...
Yeah, it's not the lyrics are not good.
I'll be honest, I haven't heard a single song from it. I'm just seeing the reviews saying it's not great, and even the Taylor Swift people are twisting around in the wind trying to make it work and try to justify it. So I think it's that to me says maybe it's a Godfather Part 3 of her catalog. So we'll see.
Yeah,
maybe it'll be appreciated more in years down the road.
Maybe, but like it's mostly her complaining about being rich. So,
yeah.
So what has been? This is something that I asked our friend Luke last week when he filled in. I asked to start the podcast, what was your favorite thing in the world of professional wrestling this past week?
So my favorite thing in the world of professional wrestling would probably, I'm going to be honest, I think it's the new ratings setup that Nielsen is putting out, because I'm very amused at this idea that like suddenly everything is being accurate and they're realizing that like not as many people are watching wrestling as they thought. But sports are still like blowing up. And there was always this idea that, the TV rights for WWE and AEW are so high because they're considered sports. And now we're seeing more evidence that people aren't watching wrestling like they watch sports necessarily. So I'm just curious, are we going to look back on this week as like the moment when the canary in the coal mine started flapping and died, and suddenly we see that this is all changing? So not a positive thing, but I think it's the most important thing that happened this week.
Yeah, that's something that I've noticed that a lot of people, including people that are that make their career off of knowing what the numbers mean, don't understand what's happening with these things. Because like the development is, for people that aren't aware, Nielsen a few months ago announced, this was like in collaboration with the NFL, that the NFL wanted better numbers than what just the panel tracking data was doing. And so Nielsen worked with some of the cable companies and with folks like Roku with smart TVs to get the data from them of who is watching linear programming on their TVs and apps. They're not like adding it on top of the panel. It's just like, let's say like, demographically, the group that they're trying to make are 50 blue people. 50% of the group is blue. Well, even if they have 300 people that are blue and 50 people that are red, let's just say, that means that still the 300 people account for 50% of the results, right? So they're just like going from like, oh yeah, we only have 50 people and 50 people, to being like, we have 300 people and 300 people, or whatever the count is. So it doesn't change the math that they're doing on the back end. It's just adding more data points so that their numbers are more accurate. I think that what's happening with it is that a lot of people were using their cable boxes and smart TVs to watch broadcast TV. I think it's just as simple as that. And that like the network TV, like ABC, CW, all those kinds of things. And so people were not being accounted for that were just watching regular TV. And whereas a lot of these cable things, the cable is what's dragging right now, I'm seeing in the new numbers. Other than like live sports, like not wrestling sports, those are doing well with the new number scheme, but that's also, I think, like something that like you watch now, you don't care about what method you use. You just use cable box, use your smart TV thing, whatever, he's watching. So I just think that that's what's going on. It's just that, like, there were people that were not being accounted for a lot, and so, like, they presumed a lot about the demographics. Whereas, like, the thing is with a cable station is, if you don't have a subscription to it, adding these new boxes and stuff is going to not, like, increase the amount of people that have access to these cable stations.
Right, and the other thing to keep in mind with this, and at this time, it's not factoring in. So people always talk about with AEW, for example, that's like, well, we don't know who's watching on HBO Max. That's still not get factored in yet.
Correct. Yeah. So there are some people that were misreporting what's going on with the HBO Max part of it, and everything about, like, streamers. Like, the NFL has a deal now that, like for example, Amazon Prime's broadcast of the NFL is accounted for accurately because the NFL and Amazon and Nielsen all got together and agreed, like, yeah, we're gonna track this program. But they're not tracking things on, like, HBO Max in the same way that they're doing that. So, like, when they have, like, a little tracker thing for the people watching Nielsen, it's picking up the audio signal from the TBS or TNT feed, for example, or the USA feed for SmackDown. So if you're watching it on a stream, that is a different broadcast signal from the one that the TV station is putting out. It does not sound the same to the tracker, so it's not accounted for. WBD and Nielsen did a deal. This is what's being misreported, is that they did a deal a few months ago saying that WBD would use the new, it's called Big Data Plus Panel numbers. They would use those for their advertising. So, like, when they're going to advertisers and pricing, hey, so this program's getting this many people, this one's getting this many people, here's the people that watch this program. They're going to use that data now, not the old data. That's all it is. It's not like they're going to give Nielsen data. They're just buying data from Nielsen.
Right. And then soon we may have the HBO Max numbers, but it's not happening until next year at the earliest.
Yeah, supposedly, because there's the talk that, like, the NFL's push to do this, especially because the NFL is, like, all the stations that NFL is on streaming is, like, Paramount and Peacock and all these other things. They're going to have to play ball with the NFL because the NFL is the big dog of TV. They can set the policy, essentially. WBD isn't part of that, so it's possible that, like, if NFL tendrils or other sports leagues push for this, like NCAA or MLB push for this, then it might expand to HBO Max.
Right. All right. So, I mean, I thought that was the most interesting thing to happen this week. So I guess I've called my favorite. I'll be honest. I don't think there was a whole lot of really notable, like, wrestling like matches this week. There was some good, solid wrestling, but there wasn't anything this past week that really jumped out at me. Unless you have something different.
Oh, I got something big. Big for you. Something big enough that we might make it the name of this podcast.
All right.
It is Andrade is back in AEW. Just as
Yes.
I foretold, and everybody else was like, no, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen so quick. And I was like, nope. He'll be back. It's happening.
It's really funny because he had a really lackluster debut the first time he came because it was in Daly's place in the middle of COVID. He just kind of came out as a matter of fact, and it was just kind of a weird debut. This one was actually very, very hot. Like, the crowd was into it, and it worked.
Yeah, the crowd.
Now he's in Don Callis' family with everyone, with all other 30 people.
With us. We're in the dog.
We're in there, yeah.
And yeah, they're going to seize the means of production. That's what Don Callis said on Twitter. That was the crowd at that episode of Dynamite was very hot and cold for me. They wanted Tony Storm, which was, of all the people. But then, like, speaking of two topics that we're going to discuss this week, they were very into the Andrade reveal. They were into Sareee during her match. So that's another topic that we're going to talk with Sareee later on today. And additionally, we're going to talk about Mercedes Mone as the Floridian opponent. But with the Andrade, yes, so he is back in AEW full-time. It seems that this is a full-time contract exclusive to AEW. it's probable that he will appear in CMLL again as well, because he's in. This is the important thing to note with the Don Callis family thing. It's not that, oh yeah, he's another guy, he's another body in Don Callis family, which I think this is my hot take for the day. We'll think about this later. Is I think Don Callis family is the most overpowered faction in the history of wrestling, because they have Okada, they have Takeshita. That alone is enough, right? But now they have Andrade, who it looks like he's going to get put over Kenny Omega in a match. They have Kyle Fletcher, is a future world breaker. They have Josh Alexander and Hechizero just they're the periphery guys in this faction. Is like a former world champion and like the hottest younger technical wrestler in the world right now, like the next big technical wrestler. It's crazy.
And that's not even factoring like the people that are injured that are part of it, like Wardlow and Mark Davis, and then you also have
Trent Beretta.
Trent. It's like you can make a faction out of the injured people.
Oh, and even Rocky Romero is on screen referenced as the most important man in wrestling of the Forbidden Door is Rocky Romero. They say it in kayfabe even. It's okay, so they control all the levers of all these promotions. In kayfabe. And so this is where I was going with this. TC in the chat was saying can't have Andrade in the same faction as Sammy. It's not about that I'm saying this is intriguing with regards to CMLL. It's that they didn't put Andrade in LFI, which is kind of we can't have you be with CMLL guys. They put him in a faction with a CMLL guy. And they also put El Clone, the new hologram, Ares. He finally debuted in AEW. They put him in Don Callis family the same night. So you got a guy that used to work AAA, got added to the faction with a CMLL guy. You got Andrade coming back, got added to the faction with a CMLL guy. That says to me, CMLL are cool with these guys.
Yeah, well, Ares and hologram was what, Aramis, right? That was him before?
Yes.
They were also, were they ever really AAA guys? I feel like they were more like Mexican indie guys that would occasionally work AAA.
Yeah, but it's kind of they weren't CMLL guys.
They were not. They were absolutely not. And I think, and I'll say this about the El Clone debut, I think that hologram getting injured actually kind of was a happy accident.
I agree.
Because I think that having him debut as El Clone when hologram is not there, that'll allow El Clone to kind of get established, and it actually makes the eventual hologram El Clone match and feud much better. It'll be a lot more anticipated, whereas it felt like looked like they were going to go right into it, and now obviously they can't.
I think this is probably a better way of this saga going is now you get to have El Clone establish himself separately. And with the faction behind him, everything is going to be solid, I think, for him, rather than just okay, now you have the immovable force versus the unstoppable object of we have this guy with this long streak, and we have to debut somebody that's gonna have to be better than him. It's it's kind of messy once you start thinking about it.
Yeah, and listen, if we're gonna. I'm hearing all the comparisons of Don Callis' family to NWO Black and White. So it's you need your fake Sting. You need your fake Sting. So there's your fake Sting.
Well, yeah, and I've heard the comparisons of oh, what's the Wolfpack going to be? It's you know what? You can see it. We already see the seeds of deception. So it's I think that they could keep adding people if they're as high quality as they're adding. Mm-hmm. They're not. They haven't gotten to NWO team level.
And here's the other thing. This is what this is going to bleed into something else we're going to talk about later on another topic. But I think in wrestling, for the last, I'd say 20 years, there's been this idea that you can't let things go a long time. Storylines get stale, they get old. You can't do things with Bruno, where he would have the title reign that would last a decade. You can't do that anymore. And I really push back on that. And I think there's absolutely no reason just letting this thing go as long as you can. If you have all these people in here, that's fine. Just let them hang out in there for years. Because I think similar to how it worked in New Japan, where you would just not really have, you'd have people in the faction that necessarily in storylines, but just because they're in the faction, they feel like they're always like there. They're
Yeah.
always featured.
Yeah.
And I think that makes things, that's why factions are so important. And I think that's going to help going forward.
Yeah, I think that's something it's been discussed this week by I've seen from some other thought people is like that it's been in reference to NXT with their showdown with TNA. It's not an invasion. Don't put it in the papers that it was ever called that. The NXT also with like the call-ups and stuff like that. Recently, the issue has been that Triple H is more interested in call-ups when they need somebody rather than as like a planned cycle. Which I think is a better way for the main roster to look at it, because then it's like, hey, we have a need. How about we get somebody that fills that need? And then that person is going to be used appropriately for that need in that time, so they might actually get a better debut, I think. But the problem then for NXT is that they can't do long-term booking.
No, they can't.
No, they have to keep everything short-term. They can't have Oba Femi's title reign end at a logical conclusion with Javon Evans beating him finally. They can't do that because they don't know if at any time Triple H is just going to say, hey, I need Oba Femi for something.
And on the flip side of that, the other issue is that people might be in NXT a lot longer because they're not cycling them in at a certain interval. People might just be there forever because they never get the call up.
Yeah.
And what they end up doing, and this would kind of lead into what we kind of typically talk about here. This leads to a situation where there's essentially adding more hurdles in WWE before you get to the main roster and start making main roster money. And they've already really done that extensively the last year, because now you have TNA, you have AAA, you have Evolve, you have the LFG show, you have NXT. Some people may have to go through like several of these before they get to the main roster to attempt to even make main roster money. And this almost feels like just like a scheme to like make it look like, oh, you can make money. This is the quintessential, you can make up to so-and-so amount of money on an advertisement for a job, where, they'll say up to this amount, but it's like, they never offer that. So I think this is going to be a story going forward, especially when we see all these wrestlers who have now left NXT and they've turned down offers and are going publicly saying like it wasn't enough money.
Yeah, we did the math on that. I did the math on that of if you were being offered $75K to live in Orlando, what that would get you at the end of the day, if you just lived at the living wage kind of like lifestyle, it's like you have around $10,000 of extra money at the end of the year, which has to account for then all of your other like possible like non-living wage kind of living expenses, like anything incidental that comes up, healthcare that comes up for a wrestler, things like that have to come out of that money. So it's it's not the best lifestyle for them. But yeah, how about we transition then from Andrade, who we can safely say is a confirmed jump at this point.
I don't think we need to debate
solidly
that.
A confirmed jump. I think that we were touching on it for a little bit there, which is about we were talking about the lengthy title reigns, and somebody with a lengthy title reign right now, which I believe is about to surpass the longest title reign in AEW's history, is Mercedes Mone. So she has been also, we have somebody in the chat asking Andrade's last appearance for WWE. I think that it's possible that he will go back to WWE at some point in the future. But because like that seems like his deal now is that he understands how to work the market very well.
He's already arguing with Dave Meltzer on Twitter, so he's already being angry about that. So it's only a matter of time, maybe, before he blows up again. We'll see.
So with Mercedes, so she is talking about having an opponent this coming Tuesday on Dynamite that is a Floridian. She said that she wants to face off against local talent. So
take on Ron DeSantis.
So do we think that this is going to be a person that is a current free agent that we are tracking right now on the tracker? I think we have some candidates, of likely candidates. I'll list them off to you. We have Izzy Moreno. Do you know Izzy?
Yes, we know Izzy. We know Izzy as the little girl that
the little hugger.
She stole the bow from. Yes. That I think everyone knows that. That was during NXT's, I would call that time period like the era of good feelings for pro wrestling, because it was a time where just everyone really liked NXT. And it was just sort of like a well-known thing that NXT is like really great. And that was like one of the few times I'd say that a lot of people in wrestling were just kind of in agreement on something. And that time has long since passed. But I think I think everyone is aware of Izzy.
And that is 10 years ago to this week.
Okay.
So that's intriguing. Now, I would counter that with saying that it would be hard to tell that story without having any access to NXT film. Even though it's a one-off, like to show people that are watching that don't know what's going on with that, because as I always often point out, I think that the majority of AEW's current fans were not watching wrestling 10 years ago.
Yes, but here's the thing. I think this could just be a if you know, you know kind of thing. I don't think they need to spell everything out. I mean, she comes out, people are going to know what it is. And if people don't, they'll just see it as it's a one-off with a local talent. Maybe they'll allude to it. I'm sure they'll talk about it, but on commentary during the match or before the match, I don't think they need a giant video package for Izzy Monroe. But I think at this point, this is what Mercedes does, is she just makes these really interesting matches, and she's kind of doing something with these title reigns that we haven't seen in a long time. This is what I was alluding to earlier, where a lot of times I'm hearing people, keep talking. I mean, I've said it too, where I say, okay, when is she going to drop these belts? How is she going to eventually drop these belts? Is she going to lose them all? And the more and more I think about it, let's say she's got another decade of her career left and she's perfectly happy just finishing it up, signed with AEW. I mean, why does she need to end this? Why can't she just be this belt collector that cycles through belts or collects belts? Maybe she gets to 20, maybe she gets to 30 by the time she's done. Why is that a bad thing? Especially right now where the state of the indies are. And, a lot of times they're not running and not doing much with titles to begin with. So why not just throw it on Mercedes, and maybe she comes in once a year or once every couple of years to do a match for their women's title and just pop the house a bit. I don't see why they can't just let this go. And that's what I was talking about earlier, where you have this idea. You could have these decade-long reigns still, because nobody does that anymore. And I think it would make it fresh and interesting.
I would counter. So I think that like what you're alluding to also is kind of the way that CMLL looks at championships a little bit more, which is like championships are something that are defended rarely, but that doesn't mean that the championship isn't prestigious to have. It's kind of like AAA saying CMLL is being like, this is the guy for this division. This is the guy, So if you keep beating his teams in these trios matches and singles matches, he's gonna have to give you a title shot, But it's gonna happen like after we have to see all the competitors, we have to see all the contenders, and then we're gonna say, you know what, you're gonna be the one that's gonna challenge him. That's kind of the way that the CMLL book, like storytelling with championships goes. I would say that my counter to that for an indie is that if you have your belt on somebody that's only is on the Brock Lesnar schedule, the Roman Reigns schedule for your indie, and it's just like showing up once a year, and you have more than one show a year, it's kind of like, okay, so how are we going to make this interesting for the people who, because with an indie, you have to like re-explain yourself every show to the audience, it feels like, like the way that you book. You can't just be like, oh yeah, the entire audience knows everything about our promotion. No, you have to assume that the audience is brand new to your promotion every single time. So if that's the case, then it kind of is difficult to then like book matches for the entire year that are around the women that don't deal with the championship, So that's my counter. But I understand, because like from a business kind of hype perspective, that like you could see Mercedes drop her top belts, like her top tier promotional belts. So we're talking like AEW belts, CMLL belts, New Japan kind of level belts.
Yeah, and she's dropped the strong belt.
Well, I'm saying like as she's continuing to collect.
Yes.
Because it's not over. It looks like she's about to get her 9th and 10th on 2 indie shows coming up that she has booked. So she'll surpass Dragon's number once, not after those 2 belts, but the belt after that. And I think if that's the case, then it's going to be a major title that she's going to get from a major promotion. So like the AEW World Title, Ring of Honor World Title, something from Stardom, something like that. It's going to be that crowning achievement belt. It's not going to be her going to Denmark to an indie, and that's going to be the belt, Yeah. So I think that once she does that, if within your idea set of like, is this a good idea long term? Can this be sustainable? If she loses her top belts, and then like she drops the gimmick of being like the multi 10-time super champion, like that's just all you have to do, and then like in the background she just competes on these indies and has these belts.
Yeah, I think that's probably where we're heading with this. I think I think that you're right. I think that when she does break Dragon's title or championship record of having all those belts, it'll probably will be a major one. I don't think it'll be the AEW world title though. I really don't think they're going to put both the TNT and the world title on her at the same time. I could be wrong, but it feels like if they were going to do that, they would have done it already. And and frankly, I'm not a big fan of when they do that, because there's a good way to split them up eventually. But they almost never do it, and I just don't think that. I think they have more. I think there's other more interesting things they could do with it. So we'll see what happens with Mercedes. I think that's all I have to.
Yeah. So back on the topic of who her opponent could be, and if there is any kind of free agency thing. So we had Izzy as a high likely one. There's been talk about Lacey Lane, the former Kaden Carter, who was working in tag work mostly in WWE until recently. She was released by them a few months ago. She appeared at the Philadelphia ROH tapings and did some matches. She got entrances for her matches as well on ROH. She lives and is from Winter Park, Florida. So that is a possibility there.
With she used to tag with the one Katana Chance, if I remember correctly.
KC Squared, as it was called, yes.
Yes. So here's the thing with her. She obviously has been working AEW a bit more, or at least
she did the 2 bookings and that was it so far.
Yeah, did the 2 bookings. And this is not unlike anything this is very similar to how AEW operates. They bring people in all the time, especially Pete Castoffs from WWE. They'll give him shots in Ring of Honor and things like that. That happens. So to me, I think a question does need to be asked is whether or not this is a sign that she may be getting a contract with AEW soon. I have of the opinion that I don't think I've seen evidence that that's going to necessarily be the case. And to be completely honest, I don't think that she's even that high profile of a person to give that much of a thought to.
So how about then somebody that isn't from Florida? Okay, originally,
Okay.
but I believe that she's taken up residence in Florida up until recently, at the very least. Who appeared at one of these Florida tapings, tagging with the grizzled young veterans, Isla Dawn.
I will say this. I think if they're seriously going to present Isla Dawn as Florida resident, I mean, that's going to be laughable, first of all.
The Scottish Highlands are famously the Florida of the UK.
This is true, but I think that nobody is going to see that as someone from Florida. I don't think they would do that. So I think it's fair to say that that's not going to be Isla Dawn, I think.
That's how I feel about the other name that I've seen thrown about, which is Dakota Kai, which also she continues to be streaming and sitting in Florida, not doing much. We haven't got a lot of updates on her status. Some people keep on trying to push, yeah, I think that she'll go to Japan, and then like nothing happens for months and months. It's not like B. Priestley where like somebody was like, yeah, she might go to Japan, and then immediately she's having a press conference at Stardom. It's like it's kind of looking at our watch a little bit like, okay, what's happening with Dakota Kai? But she seems happy with her streaming and stuff. But she's somebody in Florida.
Yeah, and here's the thing: I haven't followed her streaming monetary success. I don't know how much she's making off this. I imagine she's doing all right. So it could just be a thing where she's just really having a hard time getting off the chair. And if she's making money, I can't really blame her, especially after coming off of WWE, where she's probably made some decent money over the years.
Oh, yeah, she was on main roster for quite a while.
Yeah, so if she's not really in a rush to get back in the ring, that's fine. I do think that that's probably what's going on, though. I think that there's nothing really. No, I don't get the impression she has a drive to go back to wrestling right now. Maybe she will, but she seems pretty indifferent to it.
Yeah,
so, I don't think she's going to be showing up on Dynamite. I'll say that.
Yeah, I think that as far as this goes, that the answer for our Wrestle Watch Free Agency podcast thoughts about it are, we're saying most likely Izzy, but most likely not having a free agency impact.
And here's the thing: if it's going to be on Tuesday against NXT, it's really not a bad idea to maybe go up against NXT with one of the most famous things that ever happened at NXT, and bringing that back. Not that I think there's going to be like some big mass group of people who are going to be clamoring to see Mercedes Mone versus Izzy Monroe, but I think it would make sense, especially being on the Tuesday.
Yeah, so Izzy Moreno seems like the most likely option there. I think an option that's unlikely, very unlikely, because she's already back in Japan. Somebody else that lived in Florida for a time. We're talking about somebody that just returned to the U.S. for a few appearances that I wanted to discuss next here on the podcast, and that is Sareee. She was in the U.S. this past week doing some dates. Go ahead.
Florida resident Sareee.
Obviously, super famous Florida resident Sareee. That's another name that I saw bandied about as possible for this, and she's already back in Japan, so that'd be kind of difficult.
The other one I heard, I don't know if you're going to bring this up, but I believe Tessa Blanchard lives in Florida.
Oh yes, famously, definitely going to work in AEW. Tessa Blanchard.
Yes, absolutely. But we'll go back to Sareee. Let's talk Sareee.
Yeah. So this week she flew over from Japan to Florida to do some bookings with AWROH. Originally, people were not sure how long she was going to be in America for, but pretty much everybody assumed once she posted that she was going on a plane that she was going to appear on their programming this week. That's what happened. She did 2 matches this week for them. Both of them were on ROH. They filmed on Wednesday at the Hollywood Casino in Florida. They did a tag match with Alex Winter versus Diamante and Billy Starks. The crowd. Okay, so here's something that I want to discuss, which is more discoursey, is Twitter has a lot of stan culture that bends reality of what's happening right in front of your eyes.
Okay.
So, based off of fan cams of the match before it aired, there were people pushing a few things about what happened in this match. They were like, oh, she only wrestled for the match was only 2 minutes long. It wasn't 2 minutes long. She was only running for 2 minutes. It didn't matter. It was a tag match. There were people trying to push this idea that when she was in the ring, everybody was doing chants of, let's go Billy, let's go Alex. That did not happen. That is something that did not happen. And contrary to that, actually what did happen was when she was not in the ring, people were chanting, Sareee, dun, dun, Sareee, dun, dun. That's what the reality of what happened was. People, I was surprised, considering the crowd on Dynamite, with the wedding of Toni Storm and everything like that, that the crowd knew who she was and were into her. The first time that she did a chop or a hit on Billy Starks, and it was so loud, the crowd was just there for the match. Which I thought, like, wow, for an ROH pre-show match in a city that, like, everybody else is just saying, like, oh yeah, the crowd reaction is pretty, but, like, yeah, that's very counter to what I was seeing on Twitter about this match. So that's what I wanted to get out of the way first off.
Let me ask you this then. Why do you believe that this discourse is being pushed, this idea that Sareee is not, is not getting was not getting a good reaction from the crowd. She wasn't given enough time. Like, why do you think that was being pushed?
I think that there are people both that want to see her go back to Marigold and or go back to WWE.
Okay.
And so anything that is, I think that there are those people, and then I think that there are also people that are just Sareee super fans. Mm-hmm. Like that is their special little guy, and they need everything to always be the best for her. Which, like, so they push this narrative that because she was being put on a pre-show match, which now, like, when we look back on it, like, the presentation of how they dealt with that, all added up. She was, like, featured on Collision. They did a video package about her. Every single AEW account was tweeting about it. They're putting the tag match on YouTube for free. They are, it looks like Athena is trying to push for a program, which is one of the 2 matches that Sareee wants. Like, they're doing everything that they can on the AEW side, I think, short of actually having had the match on Collision, which they probably should have just done that with the Alex Winter Sareee match. Other than, like, time constraints, because, like, they're not going to get 20 minutes on Collision, unfortunately. They should. But, like, for progression storylines on Collision, I understand if they wouldn't put it on that program. I understand why.
And have you watched the whole match?
The tag match?
Yes.
Yes, I watched the entire tag match, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought that, like, it was a good showcase of Sareee, that she was positioned as the hot tag. She was positioned as the big name in the match. They booked it like that she was who she is. The crowd was behind it. The crowd was interested in the match, which is rare for a women's ROH match, especially in Florida. So I think that, like, if you're a Sareee superfan, somebody that, like, you stan her even, you're like, well, she was put on the ROH match, and so, like, that means it doesn't matter, and that means that I need to rag on everything about this match, because then she won't go back and be treated poorly again. So I think that this is we've also had since then after the two matches were so like the singles match, the IWGP Women's Title defense was filmed on Thursday, and that match will be airing next Thursday. They, as I said, on Collision promoted that match, pushed people to sign up for Honor Club to watch it. So they're using this as like a tent pole for Honor Club signups.
Have you heard any reports from the title match?
I heard that it was very good.
Okay.
Tony Khan came out after the match and
held up Saree's hand.
Held up Saree's hand. Yep. So he really liked the match. He wouldn't have done that if he didn't care about the match.
So I guess here's what I want to say about this. I think I understand why a lot of people are kind of hesitant in terms of how they think Sareee is going to be presented, because I'm seeing a lot of similarities, not entirely, but I'm seeing a lot of similarities between how Sareee is being presented and how Miyu Yamashita has been presented when she comes to AEW and ROH, where she is shown as this big deal that's coming in. They'll hype her up. They'll do like match graphics for her and make that her like this big selling point, and never really. And it seemed like it's just for a short little run and that's it. And I think that even with this, it does seem like they're presenting her better. And I think it's tied probably because she is the IWGP Women's Champion, which is a partner promotion, and therefore she's going to be presented much better. Even with that, I do think there's a very good chance, and I think that it's probably the most likely outcome, that is she's going to come in for, a month or two, eventually, and then she'll leave and we won't see her for a year. Probably similar to what we expected Sareee to be doing before she got injured.
Yeah, I think that with Sareee being a freelancer, technically, officially, still, and it actually meaning something with her, too, she has a lot more freedom to say no.
Yeah.
To how she's brought in. But also, she has a lot more freedom to say, yes, I would love to be here for a month. Whereas, Sareee doesn't have that, wiggle room as much. If Stardom's like, no, we want you to stay in Japan, you can't take that booking. They have the power to do that.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting to see if she does anything after. Well, here, do you think we'll see her again in AEW ROH before the end of the year?
That's essentially what Sean Ross Sapp is reporting.
Okay, and because that's what he said.
Yeah, his report was that we should. There's an expectation that she will be back in the U.S. soon. Okay.
I don't know that it's going to be that soon, because if just looking at the history of how AEW operates, especially with Japanese talent that aren't necessarily local to, living in the United States, like someone like Riho, who literally comes in for a one-off feud that may just last like 2 or 3 weeks, and then she's gone for a while. Or even someone who does live in the United States, like at Hikaru Shida. Lately, she'll come in for a little program that'll last like a month or two, and then she's gone again. And I think that, and maybe that's okay. I don't even necessarily think that's bad, because I do think that it makes these people feel like special showcases that keep them hot and interesting. And I think that's probably what's going to happen with Sareee. And I don't think she'll be back before. I'm going to say it right now. I don't think she'll be back again in 2025.
I think that they could. I think that she'll be back at one of two times. She's either going to be wrestling on Wrestle Dream, or she's going to be wrestling on Final Battle.
I suppose, and it also depends like when Athena is going to be like ready to go.
Yeah, because I think that if they're going to do something with her, it's probably going to be Athena. It's probably going to be Sareee defending the IWGP against Athena and winning. which again is another difference point between what you're referencing is that you look at like Miyu Yamashita. When she comes in, they're like, oh yeah, she's great, and then they give her a cupcake match, singles match, and a tag match, and then she loses to somebody, and then that's it, right? Sareee, I like put aside that they put it on ROH, you know, they put her in a tag with someone that they are very invested in Billy Starks. Now, mind you, they had Alex Windsor win the match proper. But they then set up a singles match, which, I mean, spoiler alert, Sareee is still the IWGP champion. But Alex Windsor is somebody that they are invested in. Like, TK is invested in her. She isn't going to get jobbed out for no reason. You know, she's not that kind of person. Like, she is positioned in the upper mid card at the very lowest in the AEW construct. She's being positioned similar tier to like a Willow Nightingale or to Megan Bain or to Tekla, those kinds of people, which means that you don't have her lose to just anybody. And you don't position her to be in a match where she has to lose to just anybody. So I think that speaks a lot to what they wanted to try to do with this, even if it was on ROH rather than on AW Pro proper. I think that they wanted this to feel important. And I think that is a difference between how you were discussing with these other bookings. Like I think that's kind of how it's been different. So I think that if she's coming back to the US, we haven't heard of a Sukeban show coming up anymore.
No, I don't know. One day we're gonna get like a documentary on that. Yeah. And just like that whole promotion. It'll be like the Blackcraft Wrestling documentary. Just see what happened.
The only other places that I could see her other than AWROH, and if she's still with Stardom, let's say, you know, she still has the IWGP belt, so she's not going to be showing up in WWE.
No.
You know, in the near term. I would say that like you're looking at like your top tier indies, like a DPW. But like if let's say in the scenario that like let's just you know say supposedly, let's just suppose that maybe she's upset about how she was presented, you know, it wasn't on TV or something like that, you know, do you think that she's gonna fly a day again for a random indies match?
No, probably not.
Probably not. So like it's possible that she, you know, comes over and does a few indie dates, you know, in a row and stuff, and is there for like a week or two. But like also with like Visa sponsorship, like AEW's got the ability to do that a lot better than these indies do. So like Sareeism in the USA is a possibility too. I could see that happening. I think that like there's a market for that. A show like that in the U.S. Market, but like if we were saying like somebody in the chat has been suggesting, oh yeah, maybe it'll be Sareee versus Julia at WrestleMania 42. I don't think that's happening. I think that she's not going back to WWE.
No, I don't. I don't think that's happening at all. And that would also imply that they're going to suddenly. I mean, they would need to fix a lot of burnt bridges between
her and them, and then on top of that, how they present people like her.
Yeah, and they would have to suddenly start presenting Julia a lot better.
Yeah. It's been a very questionable U.S. title reign, I think, for Julia. I think the match has been fine, but just like it's very quizzical why they're presenting her how they are. It just nothing makes sense about how they're presenting her to me. Right now. Feels like it's just like holding pattern because they don't know what to do with her. They brought her up without plans in reality. Beyond like, yeah, we'll give her the belt and then what happens? We'll Bob Holly it, I guess. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think like it's possible that, like maybe her time in Stardom ends this year. Maybe it was just like a 1 year kind of deal, contract wise. Maybe she does some dates again with Marigold next year, and like she keeps popping back and forth like she's Andrade. She's like the Joshi Andrade. But she commands that because she's Sareee. She's the best freelance wrestler in the world, and probably she's in the conversation with one of the best wrestlers in the world. Period.
Yeah, I mean, and she's a promoter too.
She's a promoter. She last year she was nominated very highly. I think she finished like third in the Wrestling Observer Newsletter's Booker of the Year.
Yeah,
like
that's and that's where we're at right now. It's like, I mean, she commands a lot of respect because she feels that she's earned it.
And I think she has. And she got screwed around by NXT too. Mm-hmm. So like I understand where she's coming from if she's like, hey, like you guys need to put respect on my name. You see what I'm like, I've proven now. Yeah,
a lot of people who just aren't. I think there's just a lot of people who just aren't aware of what she's done over the last like 2-3 years alone.
She's put a gigantic spotlight, I feel like, on the Joshi scene in a way that I think that there's been a perfect storm over the past 2 years, essentially, of like the reinvigoration of the independent Joshi scene, kind of pushed by her, and also like the way that there's been more collaboration of talent and allowing of like Stardom wrestlers to take indie gigs. And I think that she kind of helped spearhead that, along with, at the same time, Stardom being integrated more into the Bushiroad New Japan structure, allowed for that as well. With Marigold, I mean, she was brought in there to be the stabilizing force at the beginning, essentially, of like a talent. So like, I think that like the women's scene in Japan, I think, is probably the strongest it's been since essentially like the 90s.
Yeah, I think that's an accurate statement. I mean, you take a look at where anywhere in the world right now, like where houses are actually growing, it's CMLL.
Yeah,
that has been having a fantastic year, and it's Stardom, and just Joshi in general is doing much better.
Yeah, like even if Marigold isn't like doing world-breaking houses, the fact that a promotion out of nowhere we're just like, yeah, we're gonna establish something, like understanding like the talent they have and the person they have and all those kinds of things, the person running it. The fact that they're still able to, continue, getting a couple hundred people up to 1,000 people, is like out of nowhere as a Joshi promotion right now is saying like, yeah, the scene is healthy. Like the fact that like a third or fourth women's promotion can just establish itself and at the same time not take away from the bigger promotions. Like Tokyo Joshi Pro has been having one of their better years for draws, and Stardom has had their best year for draws.
Yeah,
and that is the year after they had like not half the roster, like a quarter of the roster, and the person running the promotion leave to make a new promotion.
Stardom demonstrated that they just had a very deep backbench that was just ready to go.
Yeah,
and they benefited by, cutting a lot of that people at the top and giving those hungry people a chance. And they delivered. They've delivered so much because now you have, Starlight Kid getting pushed in a way that she never did. Obviously, Saya Kamatani, that goes without saying. But you have Azumi getting this great opportunity. And not even just so much the Marigold departures. You have Tam stepping back. Mm-hmm. I think that helped a lot. So it's just you're allowing these spaces to open up, and that really freshened up Stardom in a way that it needed to be freshened up.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that. So as far as where we think tracker discussions, because Sareee is on our official WrestleWatch free agency tracker.
Yes.
How are you feeling about her odds within the next year of actually signing with a promotion long term? Because now we have a few players. Now we have a few options here. She could go back to Marigold and stay with them long term. She could stay with Stardom long term. She could even, if things work out with these trips to the U.S., possibly look at that as an option. I'm not sure. I think WWE is very outside of the realm of possibility. But, mentioning that. Or do you think that within a year she's still freelancing?
So, and here's the thing. I kind of alluded to this earlier, that I don't necessarily think all the stuff that happened in ROH changes anything. Before, we thought it was possible that she could make that jump. I still think it's possible. And to me, that possible means, it's, if you put a gun to my head, I'd say it's not happening. So I'm just going to stay possible. I think it's possible, but I don't think it's anything more than that.
I think that this is a little bit more movement than we've seen with her. And recently, I think possible is kind of like the realm of she has this belt from Bushiroad, and they're entrusting her with this belt. So they think highly of her, and they think that there's a shot that they're going to keep her longer than a year. I think that
she's demonstrated she's a professional.
They
do trust her.
Yeah, she's not gonna take the belt to Marigold and put it in a trash can.
Yeah.
I think that her flying all the way to Florida to work just 2 nights with AWROH is, I think that's development in either her flirting with America again, or trying to have a more solid relationship with Stardom. And even if it's just her putting her toe in the water and seeing if she wants to stick with this territory system, essentially is the way we can put it, or if she wants to go back to freelancing or go back to Marigold, I think that it boosts it a little bit. Just boosts it just that little inch for me, that I would put it up as a toss-up right now. But I think that if, as you said, I think toss-up is obviously it just means 50-50, but if you're really in a gun in my head scenario, I would say probably she's still freelancer by this point next year. Mm-hmm. So how about we look at our tier list as it stands now?
Okay.
We have up in the certain tier, we still have Joe Hendry. Not a lot changed there, right? In likely tier, we have 2 people that it sounds like there was. I saw somebody say, and I can't remember who it was, that Sozaya and Mike DiVicchio have shown up in Orlando at the WWE Performance Center. I can't recall if that was confirmed though. Also, we have Ninja Mac, Adam Priest, and Michael Oku. Probable, we have Dakota Kai, Danhausen, and Chris Jericho. In toss-up now, we have Rio from Britain. We have Britt Baker, Private Party, and Sareee now in toss-up. In the possible tier, we have Priscilla Kelly and Shayna Baszler. Unlikely, we have Gabe Kidd, Shinsuke Nakamura, Bayley, Bozilla, and Miyu Yamashita. And down in remote, we have Karrion Kross, Leon Slater, Saraya, The Miz, Isla Dawn, Maki Ito, Dragon Lee, Tetsuya Naito, AJ Styles, and Lacey Lane. We're putting her as a remote chance of having a long-term contract within the next year here. As TC is saying in the chat, I think Priest has some kind of deal at AEW at this point. I agree. I think honestly at this point we could put him up in certain or take him off even. That's my feeling on it. So I have a question to you as our hot take this week.
Okay.
This is my question is, who is somebody that is a dark horse pick for you, a kind of I'll die on this hill pick for Wrestler of the Year?
Well, I mean, I think okay, let's start with because here's the thing. This is an interesting year because there really isn't like a front runner pick.
No, I don't think there's a front runner, but I think that there are some people that I would say are more likely in the conversation and constantly in the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think like there's a like for example, obviously Mystico's coming up a lot for obvious reasons. Saya Kamatani's coming up a lot. Um, Bandito's been having a late run at it. If I had to give you my dark horse pick, honestly, and I know a lot of people are going to say like, well, I don't know, that's a dark horse, but I really think Hechicero is has an incredibly underrated year.
Ooh, that's a hot
Even
one.
yeah, even like because here's the thing, he's been wrestling a lot, and every single time he's been having matches, they've been fantastic. Like he's like the most consistent worker, uh, probably in the world right now, and he arguably has the match of the year. So I
Yeah.
think I might say Hechicero is my dark horse wrestler of the year.
I think that like, and another name that we actually were discussing tonight was Sareee, that I think is another like in the conversation kind of person. I wouldn't put her at the dark horse level is the thing. Like I don't think that she's going to hit like top 5 in the voting for like Wrestling Observer newsletters as award necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's possible she gets in the top 5 for best in ring.
Yeah, what's that saying? Sure.
Uh, Yes, so I think that that's definitely possible. I think she'll be top 3 for Japan MVP like she was last year. Same, I think like Japan MVP right now is like her, Saya, Goto, maybe.
Yeah, go. I mean, yeah, Goto obviously was hurt just because of the fact.
Ozawa. Like, it's a hard for the men's side in Japan this year to look
It
at an
really is.
MVP.
Well, I don't think there's a strong candidate for men's side in Japan, just because I don't think things have been that great this year.
So my dark horse then is like because like I think that Sareee is in the conversation enough. Like Saya Kamatani, I think it's in the conversation enough, even if I don't think that they will necessarily win that award. Mine is Mark Briscoe
Okay.
because
Okay.
I think that he's going to be my um, like even if I could phrase it as like sixth man, like bench player guy that you know like your most valuable player's most valuable player. Um, he is the guy that like is like the glue I feel like on AEW and like consistently always. I think that he has sometimes an MJF syndrome where people forget how good his matches are in between the matches happening. Because he continues to have a fantastic series with Kyle Fletcher, and it looks like that they're gonna have another matchup coming up. So I think that that would be my pick of like the dark horse is him. I'm sure people might mention like Obafemi from NXT as a possibility. I think that's more dark horsey because like he's on NXT. TC in the chat has his vote of real vote is Mystico right now, but his dark horse. Does Mox count as a dark horse? Because dude's been one of the best parts of AEW product for the last 6 months, but like at the beginning of the year, people might have said that he was the worst part of the program.
Yeah, I think that honestly, he's probably. I think the other issue is I think he came in at a time when like the Death Riders angle itself uh, really started almost as uh, a rejection of everything that was going on in AEW in 2003 when people felt that, you know, the brochacho stuff and you got, the screaming Adam. And it was a time when AEW just felt like it didn't really have a clear, distinct identity. And Mox came in to try to shake that up. And I think we probably need to look back and reevaluate his entire reign in actuality. Um, and it's probably also a sign that just there weren't strong baby faces to get behind in AEW at that time. There was a real lack of them because once Mox started feuding with like Swerve and people that people cared about, uh, suddenly they were into it. So I think that the idea that
Yeah.
maybe Mox got a lot of flack for stuff that wasn't necessarily on him, but more so just the promotion and the overall vibes of the promotion itself. And then he was able to kind of fight through all that until we got to All In, and you know made a very successful conclusion to it. I think there's an argument to be made that he is a dark horse.
I would say that, like, I would pinpoint it to, there was a Dynamite in Phoenix at the Arizona Financial Theater, where that was the first one where Cope put out, like, he entered through the crowd and stuff and had Spike, and he was like, I'm going to take you out one by one. And that was the first time that somebody went that direction with Death Riders. And I think that that was the moment when the crowd flipped on it. Like, I think that still, like, people were a little upset still with the story at Dynasty. But I think that that was the first moment when, like, the live crowd started getting behind the story. But yeah, so I think that this is an interesting discussion, an interesting thought, especially with, like, PWI's list season is upon us and everything like that. But yeah, was there anything else that you wanted to discuss this week on the WrestleWatch podcast?
I think we covered everything we needed to discuss.
Awesome.
I know you got to get going too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I gotta get going. Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and say thank you, everybody. I think this was a good discussion. We'll talk again next week, probably talking about Adam Priest, and who knows what comes up in the next week. So
Yes.
with that, everyone.